Hello everyone, my name is Misail, and welcome to a new series I'm making called How to Fix a Boss, in which I basically say what parts of a boss are good and what makes the fight good, basically, on what they could have done better and improved upon that. So instead of going in chronological order with these games, I thought I might as well start with my favorite game, Bloodborne, and yeah, so as good as you think these bosses already are, there's always a few ways to make them better. What I would say is all bosses have the potential to be S tier.
Stop the cap!
So, yeah, that's pretty much it. So today we're going to be fixing Cleric Beast, which is the first boss that you encounter in Bloodborne, at least for some people. We're going to go over 4 main sort of, I guess, ranking systems when it comes to determining how good a boss fight is, which are Arena, which is, well, the arena and the environment that you're actually fighting the fucking thing in, basing it on how cool it looks, one, and how functional it is in actually fighting the boss, of course. If you have a really cool boss, but you're literally fighting in a box the size of a nail, then, I mean, it's kind of, you know, it kind of downgrades the whole boss fight. OST, so the soundtrack, there isn't really much to say there. You know, good OST makes the boss fight a billion times better. A prime example of this would be for Godskin Duo. That is a dog shit fight, but what makes it a lot better is the fact that the soundtrack backing is really fucking good. Number 3, lore. I'll put it this way. If you know what you're fighting, it makes it a shit ton better, and just makes the experience a shit ton better. Like, don't get me wrong. For example, Gale is a good fight, nevertheless, whether you know the lore or don't know the lore. First playthrough around, no one's gonna know the fucking lore in this guy. Probably not, right? But if you happen to know the lore of Gale, while fighting Gale, knowing why you're fighting him and the whole reason of why you're there fighting this guy, it makes it just that much better, if you see what I mean. And obviously number 4, which is gameplay. Obviously the most important part of fighting a boss. If the boss is garbage, like you can have an amazing arena, an absolute fucking banger OST that slaps every single time you listen to it. You've listened to it 9 billion times and it still hasn't gotten bored yet. You can have amazing lore to back up the boss, like absolute S tier writing. But if the actual fight itself is complete fucking dog shit and it's boring, point is the boss fight is trash, as in terms of gameplay, well then the boss is just bad. Like, it doesn't matter. Sure, those other things are gonna help, but they're not really gonna carry the fight. So number 4 is gameplay. Are the moves fun to dodge? Do they, whatever, you get the point, right? So we're gonna be sectioning Cleric Beast into all of these. So, number 1, Arena. Now, I really like the Arena of Cleric Beast, but one thing that I have a problem with, I guess you could say, it's not really a humongous problem, but it is still a problem, which is the arena seems to be very narrow. And I know what you're gonna say. It's Abyssal. It's a fucking bridge, right? It's literally a bridge. Like, you're not fighting in a coliseum. You're fighting on a bridge. Like, how wide do you expect it to be? And I get your point. But maybe this isn't so much an issue with the arena, but I have noticed, and not that I've noticed, it's pretty fucking prevalent when you fight him, is that your camera sometimes tends to stay in his ass and, like, point up to him. And you know, this may be a problem with how many lock-on points he has or whatever, but I just think the arena maybe being... if the arena is one of the causes for this problem with your camera constantly being in really, really weird angles of the boss, then the arena being a bit wider could maybe help. Or what they could do is a thing that they do for a lot of big bosses in Souls games, where they zoom out the camera and kind of put you in like this ultra-wide state, which really helps with the size of the boss. You know, I feel like they should have done this for bosses like Bale, for example, because even though people claim that he's fixed the like bullshit camera angles you get when fighting a dragon boss in these games, I just really don't think that's the case. So I think a thing with Cleric Beast, like that with Cleric Beast, could also really help with the fight. If you went into the fight and it just kind of panned your whole camera outwards just a bit. I'm not saying, like, give me bird's eye view here, but I'm saying, like, just pan it out a bit to the point where I can kind of just see everything a bit better. But that might not even be the issue with the problem I'm explaining. And other than that, the arena is pretty much good. Like, I don't really have any other complaints about the arena. It's really cool. It's, you know, like, he jumps down. Like, I don't know what you want me to say. As for the soundtrack, the OST, this is an absolute fucking certified hit classic. I don't need to say any more about this. If you haven't listened to the Cleric Beast OST and you haven't even played Bloodborne, I don't know why the fuck you'd be watching this video if you hadn't played Bloodborne or any of these Souls games. But if you haven't, go listen to Cleric Beast. It is a fucking banger. It's so good. It is a work of art. It's amazing. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's an amazing soundtrack. It really fits the boss. It's epic every single fucking time. And this is a bit of sidetracking here. I know a lot of people are kind of pissed about Vicar Amelia using the same soundtrack, and might even call FromSoft a bit lazy for just regurgitating the same soundtrack into a different boss. But honestly, I think the reason they did that was because, well, Cleric Beast, Vicar Amelia. A Vicar is just a bit higher up in the ranks, as opposed to a cleric in whatever sort of, like, feudal system or, like, church hierarchy they have going on here. So it makes sense to use the same theme, but I'm not going to go on about Vicar Amelia because this video isn't about her. So OST is amazing. I wouldn't change anything about the soundtrack. In terms of, like, you know, how long it is, how many times it loops, what it sounds like, if it's fitting towards the boss. I think all those boxes are pretty much checked off. Cleric Beast is a banger. The OST slaps. Number 3 is lore. Now, there isn't much lore to this guy, which isn't a bad thing, and because of that, it makes the boss, you know, it's fine, right? The lore is pretty simple. It's just that this was a cleric who, you know, of course, is obviously, by the time we fight him, very obviously under the influence of the old blood, having stabbed himself in the leg with the old blood, which of course you can see from the sort of, like, pin thing sticking out of his leg. I don't even know what it's called. I'll zoom up on a picture of it right now. But yeah, the lore for this guy it's pretty simple, and that doesn't mean it's a bad thing necessarily. I mean, I don't think, obviously, if they gave this guy, like, a shit ton of lore for literally just being a cleric beast and a very and just pretty much a victim of the old blood. Like, you start off the game and it showcases to you a victim of the very thing that the whole game is centered around. Yeah, I don't know if this this doesn't really correlate with the lore part I was talking about, but in case you didn't notice, the cleric beast actually doesn't have any eyes. Yeah, it has no eyes. Its eyes are on the inside of its face. But of course, this isn't, you know, this doesn't really mean anything to you at the start of the game until you get to the second half of the game, and you probably still won't even notice that. I just found this out in a lore video I watched like a while ago. But yeah, the cleric beast not having any eyes is supposed to symbolize, you know, the eyes on the inside, which it very much has, and the influence of moon presence and whatnot. So yeah, lore is pretty solid, lore is pretty good, not much to talk about here, and I think there's, yeah, it does what it's supposed to do. Now, number 4 is gameplay, right? Everything else was fine, right? Everything, arena, whatever, it's fine. OST, amazing. Lore, good. Fitting, whatever. But gameplay, this is where I have the real problems with here. So, this guy, every time I've seemed to have fought him, you can pretty much stay behind his ass the whole time, and the only way he will manage to defend himself from you just staying behind him is with a little tiny pathetic slap that he'll do with either of his arms. He is a giant chimeric monster, and the only thing he's doing when you're just behind him or not in front of him is just slapping you from the side. I mean, as a whole, I think this boss should be a lot more aggressive, and I think that when second phase hits, he should actually, like, jump on all fours and then start fighting you that way. But I mean, I'll go on about that a bit later. But in general, I just think he should have more moves. He should have more variations of his attacks. He should make himself a lot less predictable. And you know, fighting Cleric Beast is kind of like clockwork. I don't know why. It just seems very very predictable, like for everything he's gonna do. So like, I would change the amount of moves he has. I'd give him more moves that utilize his mouth. Like, look at that fucking thing. You do not tell me that thing could bite me. I mean, I guess not, right? Like Amelia does, but I guess for this guy, it's just crossed out. It's just checked off. So yeah. You know, I mean, I guess he might. I'm not sure if he gains a couple more moves in second phase with him doing that whole blood scream thing, which to this day I actually still don't know what it does. And actually what they could do is make that an attack, you know, make him like, well, obviously I said before, like when he goes into phase 2, have him get on all fours and just bust out some new moves that way. I think that'd be really cool, and as well as utilizing some more attacks with his mouth. But yeah, main problem I have with this boss is the moves. He's way too passive for what he looks like. Just more moves, more aggressive. I'm not saying speed up the boss necessarily, like artificially speed it up by just like making the attacks faster or whatever, because that's boring. We've seen that done with like modded bosses, like modded Millennias and stuff, where they just take the same boss and just like crank up the speed at which the same moves attack you, which is just really boring to fight against and just doesn't add any sort of like new flavor to the fight. So I'm not saying do that. I'm saying give this guy more moves that utilize his body, you know, like his whole anatomy. Like, give him moves that utilize his face. Give him some biting moves, some biting attacks. Give him some horn moves, like where he just, like, I don't know, rams into you, kind of, maybe in phase 2, as I said, where he could get down on all fours and like start sort of charging at you, kind of like Vort does in DS3. But instead of that, he like puts his head down and sort of like kind of rams you with the horns, and maybe that could turn into some sort of grab attack. But yeah, overall, there's not much fixing to do with this guy. I mean, as I said at the start, all bosses have the potential to be better, in my opinion. And those are the 4 main like criteria which I'm ranking a boss and how good it is. Arena, OST, lore, and gameplay. And I think all bosses, yeah, they have a potential to be better, but there's not much fixing to do with this guy, honestly. Main thing is the moves. This guy, yeah, he's way too passive. I feel like I'm kind of regurgitating the same point here. But, yeah. Arena is good. Could be a bit wider to maybe fix the issue where your camera pans up to his face. Or maybe just give him more lock-on spots. That would work too, to be honest. OST is a banger. Nothing else to say. Lore is good. Makes sense, you know. It doesn't have anyone fucking wrapping their brains across how Radahn is the final boss or anything. And gameplay, main issue, I'm just going to sum this up so this video isn't 25 billion hours long. He's too passive for how he looks like. I'd like if in the second phase he got down on all fours or something like that. And as well as that, I'd like if in general he utilized more parts of his character design. His mouth, his horns, gave him more, just more attacks in generals. And I forgot to mention this at the start when I started talking about gameplay, but that attack, when he just pushes you out of the way with the side of his hand, maybe buff that a bit and have him do something a bit more intimidating. Like, instead of when you're behind him or to the side of him just going like that, kind of like smacking you out of the way, which just like does like no damage, by the way, have him reach over with the other hand and grab you, yank you across, and then like just chuck you across the arena, or just make him bring you up to his mouth and he just starts like chomping on you or whatever. I think that'd be really cool. It'd make a lot of sense. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Tell me if I missed out on anything, or anything that you'd like to see added to this. But I mean, not like they're gonna fucking update the game. I don't know why I'm acting like they're gonna fix some shit, but just, you know, tell me anything you'd like to, you think would, that if added to Cleric Beast and if improved about the boss would just make it better. You know, I listed my reasons, tell me some of yours, maybe, but that's pretty much it. Not much fixing with this guy, and, yeah, see ya.